So my name's Elias. I'm the Regional Director of Blis ANZ.
And my name is Harry Lamb, and I'm the strategist at Blis. Now today, we are here to help you get physical. As someone who takes things very literally, and in the spirit of audience participation, which always goes down really well in a setting like this, I'd like to ask everyone to get up and have a bit of a stretch.
Come on, guys. Come on.
Come on.
You can
Come
do it. Yeah,
on.
it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Great chats of data and privacy.
Wow, they really did it.
They did it. I can't believe you guys actually all got up. It's amazing. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you. Who said we couldn't get together and agree?
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Now that you've done that, drop and give me 10 burpees.
Hey.
No?
Who's brave enough to do the burpees?
No, I know some crazy people in this room who will actually definitely do that, so please sit down, Scotty and Delaney.
Yeah.
But no, we're not here to talk to you about, burning calories. We're here to instead talk to you about how incorporating the physical world in your marketing can help you overcome some of the privacy changes that we're obviously facing at the moment, but also produce powerful and very practical marketing outcomes.
I do apologise, that was his idea, so sorry everyone. Firstly, a little bit about Blis. We are geo-powered omni-channel tech stack. So in plain English, it means we help advertising agencies plan, buy, and measure real-world audience through the lens of geo. And as of last year, we're now part of T-Mobile's T-Ads family. For us, data and privacy isn't just a topic or agenda, it's been our daily reality for over a decade now. Our headquarters are in London, and being a global business, we've spent the past decade, we spoke about GDPR before, and we have navigated and adapted to every major piece of data privacy array from across the world with GDPR, CCPA, and everything in between all that. And we've got the second tranche coming up towards the back end of this year. We did hear about it last year as well, so see if that change happens. On top of that, we have to adapt our business as the use of identifiers has changed. I still remember hearing years ago the occasional comment that Blis might not even survive all these changes going on from our friends in the media landscape. So I'm happy to say that we didn't just survive, we thrived. And we did so by building something truly impactful for clients and something privacy first. But we're not here to give you a Blis sales pitch. We may give you a Blis sales pitch, who knows. We're here to discuss the real-world alternative approach to media that got us here. Something agnostic, universal, and practical that everyone in this room can use to tackle today's audience and measurement challenges. To explain the context, I'm going to throw back to Harry, who recently risked his life on holiday gathering material for this presentation.
Thanks, Elias. All my holidays are in the service of gathering material for Blis and now the IAB. So that's why I'm expensing my next trip to UK. Thank you very much. Who here has been to Vietnam? Hands up. Oh, a lot of people. If you haven't been, please do yourself a favour. It's an incredible country. I certainly had a brilliant time a few months ago. It was actually my third trip in about 5 years. And I can honestly say I've barely scratched a surface, although I did scratch a few surfaces, as you can see there. But of course, with every trip, there's the inevitable culture shock moment. So let's play a little game. Maybe the people who've been to Vietnam sit out this one, because you'll know this for sure. What do you reckon is the most terrifying thing awaiting you in Vietnam? Is it A, drinking this snake liquor? By the way, this explains, oops, ooh, what's going on there? We just sped run the
Oh, you gotta go the other way. You gotta go the other way.
There we go. Spoiler alert. Got ahead of myself there, not for the first time in my life. Is it drinking snake liquor? Is it going into a Vietnam War style booby trap? I didn't go to this one, I chickened out. Or is it C, eating exotic animals? As I spoilt it, you'll see that it's actually none of those things, right? It's a simple act of crossing the road is by far the most terrifying thing you'll ever have to do. Countless scooters, no sense of road rules, although there is a road rule that everyone follows, even though it's probably not written down. And there's heaps of roads like this in Vietnam, and what you're actually supposed to do is you're actually just supposed to cross the road, right? Exactly as you can see there. And of course, these zebra crossings mean nothing. Now, I remember standing there, crapping myself, checking my phone constantly to see if I made a mistake with the directions. But no, unfortunately, the best banh mi in Ho Chi Minh City, and therefore the universe, really, if you think about it, was right there across the road. And there were 3 more roads exactly like this that I had to cross. To make matters worse, every time I looked at my phone in that area, or when I looked up, there were these billboards just laughing at me, right? Now, I don't read Vietnamese, but I'm pretty sure I can take a stab in terms of what they were trying to say, right? Just imploring me to give up.
Now, in a funny way, as an industry, we are at a similar place. Where once there was order and rules and predictability and convention, we instead of chaos, danger, and uncertainty. And just like Harry in Vietnam, you can't blame anyone for being frozen on the spot. And kind of frozen we are. According to a Blis and Sapio survey of 200 US agencies, pretty much everyone's concerned about the use of current reliance on identifiers. Thanks, Gabe, let's use your image there. No, consent required. Everyone's concerned about the current use of reliance on identifiers, yet less than half have a plan, and even less than that will execute that plan in the short term. Thing is, we'll have to get a move on, not just because reform is almost here, but also because the general public are running out of patience with us. Not only do people care deeply about their privacy and how we use their data, the sad fact is they do not trust us very much. According to the survey by the Information Commissioner, we marketers are down there with those guys, our friends in the real estate industry. I do have all due respect for real estate agent friends, got a few of them. We're down there with those guys, at least trusted professionals when it comes to handling data. At the heart of some of the biggest concerns is use of identifiers. So in reaction, what did we do? As an industry, we introduced more identifiers. And it's only made an already fragmented ID landscape even more fragmented. Take Gay again, for example. She has an email for work and email for play. From each, she will branch out into different devices, which branch out into all different things that she consumes. Each may have their own identifier, some of which may not speak to each other, and then some publishers may not pass any information at all. All this fragmentation makes piecing together one unified audience or measurement story really hard.
You seem to really love Candy Crush there. Okay.
Yeah. So what did we do? So in response to that, different pockets in our industry have been bringing all these different data sets to things like data clean rooms. But if one identifier doesn't translate link to another, then that's data loss. Or if you don't have access to that particular ecosystem, you're out. But even if you get in and you've got some great data to work with, how are you ensuring you're not fencing yourself in? Research tells us that for most categories, up to 95% of your potential audience is not in market right now. So if that's what your data captures, how do you ensure your data is constantly fresh?
That was my fault, JJ.
So with fragmentation, silos, and data stitching complications, no wonder it feels a bit like this. Poor Harry trying to get to his banh mi. So how can we cut through the chaos and finally cross that road?
Well, let me take you back to that busy street in Ho Chi Minh City, right? So these cheeky rideshare ads. Now, this was the actual translation, so as you can see, I wasn't too far off. Now, how do these companies pull off this cheeky bit of targeting? Well, I can tell you what they didn't require. They didn't need my email. They didn't need the content I've been reading, thank God. They didn't need to understand what I've been buying or what I've been searching for. No identifiers were required to work out that was the best place to place their message. Instead, the physical context alone would have told them pretty much everything they needed to know. Now, firstly, that area is sandwiched, pun intended, between some very notable hotels and tourist landmarks, like that banh mi place. It is a real place, by the way. Secondly, the locals that do pass by, they're way too busy on their scooters or walking purposely across the road to be looking up at billboards or looking at their phones, right? The only people standing around like idiots, gawking, are terrified tourists like myself or out-of-towners who just need to get somewhere fast. So if you compare this to a billboard from the exact same rideshare company a few kilometres away in an area called Bintan, not to be confused with Bentown, which is a very touristy area. Here the message changes completely to a recruitment ad. So according to government data, Bintan is home to a lot of recent migrants to Ho Chi Minh City, right? It's an area where transplants from the outer country come in, a lot of young working families, a lot of singles, basically the perfect audience for a recruitment campaign. It's an area where tourists never go, although I did actually go there. No data stitching, no identifiers required, just two different audiences, two different campaigns, no identifiers required. If that sounds a little bit jarring, it's because we've all been conditioned, myself included, that some form of identifier must always be present in our marketing, from how we build and reach audiences to how we measure success. In an identifier-based world, an identifier is required on every impression. If there's no identifier, there's no audience, right? But if we use the physical world in our marketing, if we use geography, rather than trying to force an ID onto every action and trying to piece that story together, every action is instead anchored to the consumer's real world. And it works because of a fundamental truth. Everyone is somewhere. Everything that happens somewhere. Our lives, our activities, our choices, even the things that we read and consume are all done so somewhere. Or as the CTO of WPP put it much more simply and eloquently last year, people don't just live in the digital world, they actually live in the physical world. So why don't we incorporate more of it into our media? By integrating the physical world into our marketing, just as WPP discovering last year, it doesn't just make theoretical sense. It also aligns with how humans actually live. It's both incredibly practical and powerful, and it also is privacy safe. So how do we do it? We need a big old rock. Well, not just any rock, right? To do it, you need a Rosetta Stone. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the Rosetta Stone is an ancient artifact that unlocked the language of the ancient Egyptians, right? It worked because written on that stone, alongside hieroglyphics, was the exact same text written in 3 other languages that are known to us. One of them was ancient Greek. Now, the thing is, it became a universal connector that opened up our entire understanding of an ancient civilization. In our world, the physical world, the universal connector is the humble postcode. So why is it so powerful? I'm just going to read this list. No, I'm just joking. First of all, and most of all, it is universal, right? The postcode transcends media. Everyone uses it, from the government, businesses, academia, even your grandma or your mum uses it to send you socks every Christmas. It doesn't belong to a single entity, least of all big tech. So it means that it's future-proof, right? Google and Apple and the Trade Desk, or even little old Blis, can change certain aspects of the digital landscape overnight, but because nobody owns the postcode, it is permanent and fixed. And because of that, it's agnostic as well. You don't need a complete new tech stack. You can probably work with the partners you currently work with as well, because every ad platform targets postcode right out the box. But just to show you how these strengths come to life, let's explore a campaign. So let's imagine we are working on a campaign for a DIY retailer. Brand A, pretty standard set of objectives. Increase awareness, drive sales. They kind of want it all. They have 2 audiences, DIYers and tradies. 4 channels in the plan, pretty standard these days, which means we'll probably have to engage with multiple vendors, multiple publishers, et cetera, to get it done across 3 months. So let's start with audiences, and let's park our idea of identifiers for just 1 second. So for home and DIYers and tradies, they probably exhibit traits or have behaviors that mark them as distinct compared to the average person. So they probably go to different places, right? They're probably more likely to go to hardware stores and DIY stores. They probably spend more on certain items. So it could be, they probably spend more on paint or hardware items, et cetera. And then finally, there's the occupation as well. So, as we discovered in Vietnam, the physical world is full of insights and information because your real-world behavior says a lot about who you are. So if you're a fitness fanatic like Elias, you're going to go to the gym. If you love data and privacy, you're going to come to the IAB Data Summit every single time, right? Or if you're a tradie or a DIYer, you're going to visit hardware stores. So we can use that, right? But it's much more than just place. When you combine it with time and context, you get an even greater understanding of the audience, right? So, for example, traders and DIYers might go to hardware stores at very, very different times of the day. So a tradie might get up at 6 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., whenever they get up, and they might go to the hardware store early in the morning during a weekday, whereas a DIYer might go on the weekend. We can use that information to build an audience. And these signals can be combined together in very, very interesting ways. So at Blis, we cheat a little bit. We capture a sample of location signals from hardware stores across the country. But rather than use that sample for activation, we instantly map that behavior across residential postcodes to produce a national postcode index of hardware store visits. And this is very important because it breaks a chain of identifiers. So from the moment we have that index, we don't require any identifiers to activate. That postcode list becomes our pure, privacy-safe proxy for DIY intent. And I always forget to click through, don't I? It kind of looks like this, right? So over-indexing, under-indexing areas for hardware store visitation. Because the postcode is universal, it means that we can avoid some of the data bottlenecks that can happen in the ID world, as Elias covered before. If your data doesn't quite match up with the data partner's data in the ID world, it makes it really quite difficult to stitch together. But if your data set uses geography, it's instantly in. Like, geography is agnostic in that way, which means it opens up your choice of partners and data sets, right? So if you need persona data, Roy Morgan, Experian, do their own version of persona data, which all map to a geographic area. If you want to use demographic data, the ABS is completely free, pretty much. And you can use that in how you build audiences. Spend data, Sakana, MasterCard, our friends at Visa as well, who are in the audience, I think. Hey, mate. Met him in the bathroom. Sounds worse than it actually is. That can be mapped to a residential postcode level, and that can be onboarded. Same with first-party data as well. So as long as it maps to the same geographic area, it's in. No walled gardens, no data stitching, just an open, collaborative, and privacy-safe ecosystem. And I remembered to click through this time. It lets you do stuff like this, right? So what we've done here was we've combined movement and MasterCard spend data, MasterCard spend data to produce areas that over-index for visitation or spend in home and DIY. So we've got both the spend and movement behavior covered. Layer in ABS, and then now we can toggle between tradies and non-tradies. And what you've suddenly got is a target audience that's derived from deterministic data sets that is privacy safe. Now that we've got the audience, we can almost immediately activate, because every DSP, every media owner, every publisher knows how to deploy a postcode list. So there should be zero friction there. And in terms of match rates, because we're not stitching identifiers against one another, a postcode is a postcode. Once again, when you hit deploy with Google on YouTube, or 9Now for CTV, or Vista with Digital Out of Home, or even web with Blis, you achieve a really strong match rate instantly. Which brings us to the ultimate payoff, and I'm not going to sit here and say we've solved omnichannel measurement, especially amongst this crowd. I want to get out of here alive. But the really cool thing is I think geography is a natural fit for incrementality testing, because what we're doing is we're creating a universally standardized rule across every channel, across a saturated target group. So to prove incrementality, all we really need is to mirror that with an equally robust control group. So how do we do that? Well, our platform does this automatically, but the idea is obviously to first uncover a control group that shares the same target audience traits as the target group, right? We need to make sure that we're comparing audiences or postcodes that are highly likely to have tradies in both the control and the target group. Makes sense. Then we need to ensure that we have a way of ensuring that the footfall crossover between the two is minimal. So you don't want someone who is from a control area wandering over to an exposed area and then getting exposed. And then finally, because we're targeting at the postcode level, we can avoid blocking out an entire city or a state. And once you have that framework in place, you can go ahead and activate because you have a test group that's been saturated with the campaign, and then you have a control group that hasn't, and that looks a whole lot like the test group, and then there's your A/B test there. And then finally, because the entire framework lives on the open postcode framework, what you can bring in from a measurement perspective is entirely agnostic as well. So if you've got sales data, first-party sales data from your client, you can measure sales uplift. You've got subscription data, you can do the same as well. Now, for this original brief, one of the objectives was to increase sales, so potentially we could pass these two postcode groups to a vendor like MasterCard, or I believe maybe even Visa. The nod there, by the way. And then they could use their own anonymized and aggregated data set to compare sales in those areas, and then there's your measurement, and there's your incremental.
And if that all sounds good in theory, we're happy to say it worked in real life. Everything we mapped out for you wasn't a hypothetical exercise. This was a real-world campaign we executed. 34 weeks, 4 active channels, with multiple vendors on the plan, all smoothly running on the same geo framework. We were then able to measure brand and sales lift on the entire omnichannel campaign, as Harry just mentioned, and as you can see, the results speak for themselves. It is concrete proof that if you stop chasing your digital ghosts and embrace the physical world in your media, you can not only be privacy first, but drive real brand and commercial impact. So when you're ready to cross that road into the physical world, give us a shout. We promise to be worth it, just like Harry's bar me.
It was worth it. It was fucking amazing.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if we have any questions for the chaps. Or for
I
the...
think there's one up there.
There is a question.
Yep.
I don't know. Would you like to ask a question?
The postcode in Australia is not as granular as the zip code in the US, for instance. So does that limit the application of this geo approach for certain categories of products and services?
I think when we're moving with the whole second tranche coming, it is about reaching audiences that share the same, all the behaviours. So I think for us not to get that narrow compared to a zip code, it still gives us enough audience at scale to activate and drive results as well, because we can still that one-to-one, hey, can reach audiences versus one-to-one, but that won't give us that scale to activate campaigns, especially we are going to go for a second tranche as well. But I believe the zip codes that down to certain suburb levels.
Yeah, it's an important point as well, because there are other geographic frameworks. So there's the SAs, which get down really granular. They go down to the neighbourhood level, so you can target that way. We did try to kind of work with that in the past, where SA1 level, SA2 levels, you're getting really, really nitty-gritty. Firstly, there's a universality, I'm just made up a word, factor, where we're able to bring in different data points that do speak to a postcode that don't necessarily speak to an SA, so there's that factor there. What you'll also find is, I think, the idea of a hyper-targeted way of reaching audiences. I could probably spend ages talking about how it translates to the actual marketing effectiveness of that. But there is a real benefit to, I think, getting broad scale in your campaigns anyway. Yes, what you do lose in terms of the hyper-targetedness of a certain audience, you gain in the inadvertent scale that you get. An example that I always kind of like to use in these examples would be, say for instance, you're looking to target people who are interested in in buying rice. So we have a campaign that we're actually pitching for at the moment. We're actually looking for audiences that eat rice, right? And in one of the briefs, it was you have an audience where we've uncovered from the ABS filter that we do have, ethnicities that are highly likely to consume rice. And they're all the areas you would expect, right? Cabramatta, Burwood, I don't need to list them all. We all know what they are, right? Or the other way we could do it would be we can get a list of audiences that we've uncovered using identifiers that have been searching for rice or looked at content with rice in it. Now that is hyper targeted, and that's hyper accurate because you know for certain that they have some level of interest in rice. But what about all the other audiences that haven't searched for rice? Or what about all the audiences that haven't actually engaged in that category online? So in a funny way, the scale that we actually have with postcodes, yes, is not hyper granular to the point where you're targeting a certain behavior exactly, but you're also inadvertently bringing a whole heap of scale that might actually be more useful to you in the campaign. Now, if you actually kind of flesh it out in terms of a media plan like the one that we showed you, it is actually quite deterministic, right? We are bringing together data that we get from the ABS, from MasterCard, and then there you go. I know we're running out of time, but just one last example. If we gave that campaign to a retail media company, for example, they could probably tell you quite rightly that we've got great data on which supermarkets, for example, over-index in rice. It's 100 out of 800 here. So surface your ad here in these areas, and then you're set and you're ready to go. Chances are, though, for the thousands of people who go to that supermarket, not every one of them is going to buy rice. Not everyone is in the right audience. What makes those supermarkets special, though, is the indexing. It's the same concept here. So what we're doing here is using those data points that map to a postcode. It's over-indexes for certain traits that we do like, and then that's a comfort level that our clients and a lot of advertisers feel comfortable with, and it gets you close enough.
It's privacy safe as well.
And it's privacy safe as well. Sorry, long-winded answer.
Yeah.
That was very comprehensive.
Harry does waffle.
Yeah, Elias, I thought you were the sales guy. Look at Harry go. Blimey.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, chaps. Thank you.